Hi, everybody. Welcome to the July 20th, 2018 edition of Colorado Inside Out Postgame, a special web-exclusive production here on Channel 12. I'm Dominic Dezzutti. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's get a quick take on two major educational players in Colorado announcing that they were stepping down this week. Denver Public Schools Superintendent Tom Boasberg announced that he will be resigning after almost 10 years in the position, and Bruce Benson announced he will retire as the Chancellor of the University of Colorado next June. Patty Cahoon from Westward, two major players, which is the bigger deal?
Well, I think the bigger deal ultimately will be DPS, because that is a tougher thing to wrangle. It has been challenging for decades. It continues to be challenging as reformers fight against others. Boasberg was the second really unusual pick, following Michael Bennett, people who had some background in education but not really, coming from business. So that's going to be the challenge. More contentious people. CU generally seems to be a little better behaved. Bruce Benson was an interesting person to go head it. You know, he wasn't coming from an academic background, kind of like the Hank Brown move when they put him in charge of college. But he's done a good job fundraising. He's done a good job trying to at least get other voices there. He had a bad campaign for a slogan for CU, but that wasn't his fault. So I think he will be easier to replace as long as CU looks really hard at the people they're considering.
David Kopel from the Independence Institute and DU Law School. Which leader leaves their institution more improved? They've both been around about 10 years, give or take a little bit.
By far, Boasberg. The Denver public schools have come a long way. Still not perfect, but and it's also more important. You don't have to go to CU. I mean, if you want to be an astronaut, you kind of do. But other than that, it's not compelling compared to the other choices that exist. But in kids at the Denver public schools, they don't have a choice to go someplace else. There's been a lot of progress, much more diversity of alternatives in the Denver public school system now than there used to be. And I think that it's public education is one of the most important things that our Constitution says the government's supposed to do. So they've many kudos to him. For Benson, it's interesting that even before he announced his retirement, the CU public relations machine was already gearing up to say, oh, the next guy, we're going to have to pay way, way, way more. It's going to be a package of over $1 million. I mean, Benson's a very successful businessman, didn't really need the money. He took a $350,000 salary and then paid his own expenses from the president's office, but they're saying, well, the next guy, if we want somebody good, over $1 million. And of course, that will have a trickle-down effect, because you pay the president $1 million, that means the provost and the chancellor, and those people are all going to get more money, and it will trickle all the way down to the many deanlets that now infest the University of Colorado system, the associate assistant dean for blah, blah, blah. So everybody's salary is going to go up, of course, except the faculty, and the students and taxpayers will end up paying more for even more expensive administrative bloat at CU.
Deanlets infesting CU. That's the kind of analysis that you only get here in Colorado Inside Out. You're welcome, everybody. Scott Wasserman, president of the Bell Policy Center, joins us. You can take your pick between Benson and Boasberg. I guess I'll pose my question about Boasberg because we're locally here in Denver. What do you think his legacy is in leading Colorado's, if not biggest, probably one of the biggest school districts in the state?
Good, because I wanted to talk about Boasberg. I mean, I think, look, I think Boasberg was a finance guy, an ed reformer. I think as you look at DPS, they have not been able to close the stubborn gaps that exist in our public school system here. Teresa Pena wrote an op-ed, I think it was about 3 or 4 months ago, very publicly, unhappy with the persistent gaps in the district. And so it leads one to believe that perhaps the prescription for these, for closing these gaps is not necessarily the ed reform agenda, but something else. Our organization, the Bell Policy Center, just released a new report on the state of Colorado's middle class. And one of the things that it points out is the tremendous demographic gap that you do not see communities of color represented proportionately in Colorado's middle class. And you see education as a critical tool for getting into the middle class. And so my point in bringing this up is that, other than shamelessly plugging my organization's report, is that it may just be the circumstantial income inequality that's going on in our community that has a great deal more to do with what's going on in our schools than the latest ed reform flavor of the week. And I think that while Tom has done a great job with the school district, there are other factors, other circumstances that we can't combat in the schools and that we have to grapple with as a community.
Scott, excellent analysis, and don't ever worry about shameless plugs. We've had more shameless plugs in this show that we should be sponsored by the Men's Hair Club. So let's get to our final panels. It's great to have you back, Brother Jeff, editor and publisher of 5 Points News. Looking at both the legacies of Boasberg and Benson, does anything stand out to you as, I guess, that gets written down as, here's how either one should be remembered, or perhaps the to-do list for the people that are going to be replacing them?
Let me go backwards, and maybe I will start with Benson. I would be interested to know what the diversity of that system looks like. Do those numbers reflect not only the state but the nation, or do those numbers continue to reflect privilege in those who may not need a Pell Grant and those who may not have to worry about how they're going to pay for their education? So looking at those numbers will be perhaps how I would look at Benson's tenure there. I've had 2 children graduate from the the Leeds School of Business there, and they had a great experience, but I don't know how it is for others. When I think about Tom Boasberg, I'm going to think about that gap that Scott mentioned. I don't think that charter movement, I don't think the reform movement has produced the results that they are claiming that they have produced, and if they are, I wonder what they are basing that success on. The business model in education has been dismal in my estimation, and when I think about the Bailey report and the way Black administrators have been treated in that system, and we keep hearing this word equity, it's been dismal. So there are a lot of people that are happy to see Tom go, but then there are a lot that have benefited, and those who have benefited usually will be the ones that have always benefited. Those at the bottom, I think, are still struggling, and I think that's a tragedy.
That's all the time we have for CIO Postgame this week. Leave us a comment, tell us what you think. For everyone here at CPT12.org, I'm Dominic Dezzutti. Thanks for watching.